Good evening, this 10th day of December 2018. Thank you so much for making the time for us in our top stories. Tonight, millionaire receptionist Frederick Sagwe's smiles of defiance.
Each and every accused to be released on a bond of Kenya shillings 3 million with one surety of similar amount.
And the tough conditions 30 suspects in the theft of NHIF KPC billions must meet for their freedom. Also tonight, anger of a rejected woman in Kisumu. Mother sets house ablaze, kills self, 2 children after husband marries second wife. And gangsters in brazen attack on man of the cloth in Kiambu.
He was confronted by 2 motorbikes with 4 occupants.
Catholic priest killed, money stolen in daylight robbery. Also tonight, Kenya's ailing sports sector.
We will not bid for any competitions until such a time when our stadium will be ready.
Lofty dreams and state of decay from football to rugby and stadia. Where is the cabinet secretary?
NTV Tonight with Zainab Ismail.
Our sign language interpreter this evening is David Agondoa. Now, suspects from the National Hospital Insurance Fund and the Kenya Pipeline Company presented before court today were released on a cash bail but on strict terms, including not setting foot in their offices and surrendering their travel documents to the courts. However, those of MS Web Tribe, a company contracted by NHIF to collect revenue on behalf of NHIF, have been allowed to continue providing the service, noting that a majority of Kenyans depend on the national health provider. The various officials, totaling 27, presented to court on Monday morning, were released on assorted bail terms depending on the roles they play at their institutions. And as Kennedy Mureithi now reports, the courtroom was full of supporters of the accused, ranging from village mates to workmates.
The 27 suspects were presented before the Anti-Corruption Court Monday morning. For others, like suspended NHIF Managing Director Geoffrey Mwangi, it was the second time within a span of a few weeks. All represented different organizations but faced almost similar counts, which included non-compliance with procurement laws, misuse of funds, and abuse of office. The sum total of monies involved is about 3 billion shillings. For Kenya Pipeline Company officials, they are accused of engaging in a non-priority project without prior planning, resulting in the probable loss of about 1.9 billion shillings.
These are charges that at best can be described as generic, for lack of a better term.
And some of the counts, Your Honor, are so imaginary that they are unlikely to succeed.
It is a submission that the said acts or omission by the accused persons resulted into loss of a colossal amount of money, that is taxpayers' money.
Each and every accused to be released on a bond of Kenya shillings 3 million with one surety of similar amount and or a cash bill of Kenya shillings 2 million.
Of the 6 Kenya Pipeline Company officials accused, only 5 were present in court, necessitating a warrant of arrest to be issued against the 6th, Samuel Doyo. On the NHIF and MS Web Tribe case, 19 were presented in court. NHIF officials, who include past and present managers, are accused of flouting procurement laws and engaging MS Web Tribe to collect revenue on their behalf, which may have resulted in loss of public funds. The prosecution wanted the matter dealt with zeal, as they argued it bordered on murder, as people could have died as money was being plundered.
We submit that these are serious charges founded on the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which criminalizes them. They are indeed criminalized in the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. And we would consider them to be as serious as murder.
No charge has been brought before this court saying that Danson Mushemi and Web Tribe and Robert Murilu did not render services.
NHIF and Kenya Pipeline officials were ordered not to step into their offices without authorization by the investigating officers, including Simon Olekirgoti, who has since moved to the Ministry of Devolution. MS Web Tribe were, however, allowed to carry on with NHIF revenue collection deal, as their withdrawal would result in the system collapsing. But even as they appeared before court to take plea for the charges that they are facing, there was an outpouring from people who support them, ranging from their communities and employees whom they have worked with. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV at Milimani Courts.
And remaining on the same, NHIF receptionist Frederick Sagwe and 2 others were today charged with 1 count of failing to comply with procurement laws by not adhering to procedures and criteria set out in tender documents. The NHIF scam has exposed lavish spending and Frederick's change of fortunes after his appointment to the NHIF Tender Evaluation Committee. It has revealed the dark side of opulence, puzzling many as the Assets Recovery Agency moves in to freeze bank accounts and seize properties. NTV's investigative editor Dennis Okari looks at the life of the multi-millionaire who was today released after being ordered to deposit 500,000 shilling bail.
An investigator into the National Hospital Insurance Fund scandal described him as a very polite person who sometimes tries to look like a modest man by driving a small car. Frederick Sagwe Onyancho's profile reads like a jackpot script of a young man who grew up in Umoja Estate in Nairobi's Eastlands area and lived up to this 1976 reggae classic by the Toots and the Maytals.
Some of the rich men get their riches from the ghetto.
For Sagwe, being employed as a receptionist at the NHIF was the window of opportunity he yearned for to live a lavish life using taxpayers' money. The USIU alumni joined NHIF in 2007 on a salary of 50,000 shillings. Soon after joining the Tendering and Evaluation Committee in 2013, everything suddenly changed. Apart from his smile, at the committee level, he was earning 150,000 shillings. The 39-year-old multi-millionaire amassed so much money in a span of 4 years that his spending betrayed him. According to investigators, Sagwe bought 8 houses at Green Park Estate in Athi River, each valued at 20 million shillings, spending a whopping 160 million in total in his first year at the Tendering and Evaluation Committee. That money is more than the amount it cost to build the recently launched Makueni Mother and Child Hospital, fully equipped at 135 million, meaning there would still be enough change left for him. He then bought a fleet of cars, expensive cars, Range Rovers and Toyota V8s. Sagwe is believed to have renovated his house at Green Park Estate in Athi River along Mombasa Road. Investigators say the value of the house and all its fittings stands at 40 million shillings. Even a local TV station featured it in a show where Sagwe's wife took the reporter around the expensive house, describing the furniture and interior decor as a statement of pure luxury. The father of 3 did a wedding at Safari Park at an estimated cost of 25 million shillings and later opened a chain of car and carpet cleaning businesses around the city valued at 50 million shillings. It is alleged that all his 3 children go to international schools in Nairobi. Sagwe was named as one of 20 suspects listed by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, for corruption at the NHIF and liable for prosecution over graft together with his bosses. The Assets Recovery Team is moving to court to repossess houses and other properties owned by the suspects and also freeze their accounts. Dennis Okari, NTV.
All right, now the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji, has directed the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to arrest and charge 11 persons, including officials from the National Cereals and Produce Board and traders from the Kisumu and Eldoret depots over unscrupulous payments at the expense of genuine farmers who had supplied maize. Investigations at the Kisumu depot established that NCPB officials, agricultural officers and chiefs colluded with unscrupulous traders to facilitate delivery of maize to the depot. Two traders are revealed to have supplied bags of maize worth more than 262 million shillings. One of them, Caroline Chipchumba, was paid more than 102 million shillings, while Stephen Mayo was paid more than 7 million shillings. The 11 persons will be charged with several offences, including conspiracy to commit a crime, abuse of office and fraudulent acquisition of public funds, among other charges. Now, Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei and Aldai Member of Parliament Cornelius Serem have joined the growing list of politicians who are opposed to the ongoing war against corruption. The two say the fight targets one community, the Kalenjin. However, ODM leader Raila Odinga has rubbished those claims that the anti-graft war is tribal, saying individuals must be held to account for their transgressions. NTV's Charity Mwangi with details on the growing divide and the war on graft.
The much publicized arrests of government officials involved in the alleged theft of government resources has become the source of a brewing row. A group of politicians now say the fight against graft targets the Kalenjin community.
It cannot be coincidence that one community is being targeted or is being profiled at the convenience of the fight against corruption.
It's very unfair for the Kalenjin community that anybody that is in a place of work are likely to be kicked out based on corruption.
ODM leader Raila Odinga, however, asserts that the fight against graft is one of the agendas that go along with a much publicized handshake, and that the Director of Public Prosecutions is focusing on individuals, not communities. Opponents of the fight against graft will hear nothing of it, saying arguments that appointments have partly influenced the course of events do not add up.
Some section of individuals are claiming that since the public service in this country is being dominated by some of the communities, therefore, when the swoop, which is famously known as Kamata Kamata Friday, is being done, it is because they are the majority.
Sirisia MP John Waluke voiced similar sentiments in Bungoma on Sunday during Deputy President William Ruto's visit, sentiments that were suspiciously followed by a declaration of their support for the DP during the 2022 race for the presidency.
Inakemea jamii moja peke yake. One tribe ndio inaangaziwa, na Kenya tuko na tribes nyingi, sio kusema ati hakuna corruption kwa hiyo.
Waluke was implicated in a fraud case involving the National Cereals and Produce Board, and there is an ongoing court case on it. Meanwhile, claims of our community is under attack carry on, with opponents submitting all manner of reasons. The debate over the ongoing war on graft seems to be running into murky territories, as is typical of most serious matters in the country. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
All right, and away from that to some sad story now. 5 people died on the spot and 9 others seriously injured in a road accident along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. A 14-seater matatu collided head-on with a lorry at Kapiti, which is a few kilometers from Chumvi Junction along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. The 14-seater matatu was carrying members of a church from Siaya County who were on their way to Mombasa. The lorry was heading to Nairobi. Now, the 9 people who survived the accident have been rushed to Machakos Level 5 Hospital, where they are currently receiving treatment. The dead have been taken to Machakos Level 5 morgue. The driver of the lorry has been arrested and is currently being held at Machakos Police Station. According to the police, the driver will be arraigned in court once investigations into the accident are complete. A 26-year-old woman in Kisumu burnt herself to death together with her 2 children aged 2 and 6 years following a domestic disagreement. A neighbor said she spotted Rukia Anyango carrying a jerrycan into her house moments before they saw smoke billowing from the house. NTV's Okukusa with the story.
Rukia is said to have summoned her children to the house and immediately locked the door from the inside.
Baada dakika tatu mimi naona mwangaza amefunga mlango na naona mwangaza ikitokelezea bedroom na sitting dirisha bedroom na sitting room. Na ndio nikaita shemeji yangu mwenye alikuwa hapa. Baba la venda hebu kuja. Watu wanaungua kwa nyumba. Mimi nikidhani pengine stima ndio imelipuka kwa nyumba.
Relatives suspect that Rukia decided to end her life and those of her young ones after learning that her husband had married a second wife.
Hasira kiko na hasira huwa anakuja na pimia baba watoto wangu, lakini ya sasa hakupima, siwezi jua ni nini imemfanya. Siwezi jua. Kukuwa na hasira na kila mtu kwa hii dunia huwa akona hasira, lakini sasa hii yake sijui kama ilimfanya asiambie mtu, sijui nini imemfunga, sijui.
Rukia is said to have relocated here 6 months ago from Eldoret town where her husband is now staying with his new family.
Lakini kuishi kwake Eldoret wako si ati wanaishi na bwanake pamoja. Yeye alikuwa anaishi Kamkunji, ni shamba la mama yake, alikuwa anaishi huko. Sasa chenye imefanya ndio akarudi kwa boma. Unajua mtoto wa kwanza alizaa kama bado ako shuleni. Nikidhani vile walipata mtoto wa pili ndio pengine amerealize wacha akuja afanye nini? Akae nyumbani, akuja hapa kwa boma.
Efforts by neighbors to put out the fire and rescue Rukia and her children were thwarted by the raging flames. They watched in consternation as the 3 lives were consumed. Police later collected the charred remains and took them to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital mortuary. Ouko Kusa, NTV.
A quite unfortunate incident there. Now, from the Harambee Stars qualifying for the 2019 African Cup of Nations to the national team coach complaining of a lack of 3 months' salary payment, Kenya Sevens are no longer the Shujaas. From winning a World Rugby Sevens leg title in Singapore in 2016 down to fighting relegation, it seems a dark cloud is always hovering, waiting to rain on Kenya's sports parade. Ida Waringa examines the successive failures at the sports ministry.
The Ministry of Sport has come under fire for neglecting Kenyan athletes and the structures that support them. Former Sports Cabinet Secretary Hassan Wario left the docket in shambles after the Rio 2016 Olympics corruption scandal that reportedly ran into hundreds of millions. In came Rashid Echesa, a former boxer many hoped would bring about much needed change. However, things have arguably gone from bad to worse. With the ghost of 5 undelivered stadia under the current government still haunting Kenyans, the situation worsened when the Confederation of African Football stripped Kenya of the hosting rights for the 2018 African Championships, citing lack of preparedness.
People keep talking about the Jubilee agenda, the Jubilee promise, the Jubilee promise.
To add salt to injury, renovations of 2 of the 4 stadia to host the continental showpiece, namely Kinoru and Nyayo Stadium, were lethargic and the venues were left in derelict condition. They have only been expedited to host political festivities such as Jamhuri Day celebrations, with sports events being an afterthought.
Because Kenya is not bidding, as you know, we have said, we will not bid for any competitions until such a time when our stadium will be ready.
The situation has been made worse after the Kenyan Premier League banned the use of the only available venues, Camp Toyoyo, Chemelil Sports Complex, Mumia Sports Complex, Ruaraka Sports Club and Thika Sub-County Stadium in league matches. This will be a big blow to clubs who use the venues as home stadia. Earlier, the sports principal secretary Kirimi Kaberia admitted to not knowing of the amputee stars' woes as they represented Kenya in the Amputee World Cup in Mexico wearing Team Sonko branded jerseys instead of jerseys branded Kenya. The stars would later on camp in the Ministry of Sport offices over unpaid allowances.
We did not know that the kit that they were going to wear was Sonko.
Despite national football team head coach Sebastian Menyei leading the Harambee Stars to their first African Cup of Nations qualification in 15 years, neither he nor his technical bench have been paid their salaries for the past 3 months. Menyei has since served the FKF with notice to quit due to expire on December 19th. FKF also needs 200 million shillings to start preparations for the Nations Cup with a 3-week training camp in France. The team is yet to be given their 50 million reward promised by Deputy President William Ruto. The Sports Ministry is mandated to pay the national team coach according to the Sports Act 2013, Section 12B, that established the National Sports Fund among other functions. Rugby has also been in the doldrums with the Kenya Sevens team experiencing their worst start to a World Rugby Series with just 2 wins and 4 points collected from 2 legs. The poor performance could be linked to lack of motivation and disorganization within the Kenya Rugby Union.
The union as is a very disorganized lot, but can't work without a good setup. Do you know none of the team has a contract?
All this as reports from a parliamentary committee that summoned top sports ministry officials over unaccounted amounts of the 3.5 billion IAAF Under-18 World Youth Championship budget remain unreleased. Such situations would be made easier with the release of the much-awaited sports fund, said to be valued at over 10 billion shillings. Despite national athletes flying the Kenyan flag high, it sometimes feels like they do it on an almost solo effort, considering that majority of structures around them that are supposed to help them seem to be crumbling. Begging the question, is sports really a priority in Kenya? For NTV, I'm Ida Waringa.
All right, and that report there by Ida Waringa brings us to our first break here on NTV tonight. We have a lot lined up for you. You want to stay tuned. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. And of course, we have a lot lined up for you. And in our second segment, we'll be taking a look at the International Human Rights Day that was marked today, as well as what has been happening in terms of transport along the busy Kirinyaga-Embu Meru Highway, which was paralyzed for the better part of the day. But before that, the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights Vice Chairperson George Morara says Kenya has made some gains in human rights. However, a lot needs to be done to push the human rights agenda in the country. Human rights stakeholders gathered at the University of Nairobi to mark the International Human Rights Day.
From elections marred by bloodshed, fear and strife, division on tribal grounds, the cry for humanity still lingers. During violence, women and children are the most vulnerable, with women subjected to sexual violence as a means of war. With the celebrations marking the strides of the country across the humanitarian map, there is still more that needs to be done.
The Constitution envisages the higher standards of living for all Kenyans through quality health care, adequate housing, reasonable standards of sanitation, adequate food, clean and safe water, social security and education. These are basic rights that could markedly contribute in the elevation of poverty in the country.
The government and other stakeholders have been urged to plug in.
Kenya, in the whole wide region, is the perfect place to insist on human rights because you're the most advanced country in the whole wide region. And when you think of fighting for human rights, don't forget, you are fighting for the human rights of all your neighbors that cannot do that.
In Mombasa, activists called for an awareness in what they say is a growing problem of youth mysteriously disappearing. They want the police to take necessary action to protect them rather than turning against them, accusing them of links to terror groups. Helen Aura, NTV.
A Catholic priest was today shot dead by a gang of thugs at Kino area in Kiambu County. An unknown amount of money in a bag was stolen from Father Samuel Muhi Njoroge, who is in charge of Kino Parish in Kikuyu Deanery.
Residents thronged the scene of the incident to catch a glimpse of what was happening. Father Samuel Njoroge was shot dead at this place by a gang of thugs who were said to have stolen an unknown amount of money.
Nilisikia mlio wa risasi. Nikasindwa nini inaendelea. Alafu nikaona pikipiki mbili, motorcycle. Wakawa wanateremka mbio mbio. Alafu mafundi wangu wakaniambia wamesuti mtu na wameenda.
The priest is said to have been taking Sunday's offerings to a bank in Kikuyu town.
Upon reaching this area, he was confronted by two motorbikes with 4 occupants. 2 of them were armed with pistols, and they stopped him, and the father hesitated to stop. In the process, he was shot by one of the gangsters.
The priest was rushed to Kikuyu Hospital but was declared dead on arrival. Nyange said they have launched investigations into the matter.
It is now total war to these criminals. I want to assure you that very soon you'll get the results.
He said police patrols will be increased during the festive season. Nur Abdulaziz, NTV.
All right, and at this point, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the day's business news. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We'll now take a look at our business news. And Kenya says it has welcomed the United Nations reports that indicate that global warming is on the rise and that countries must take drastic action to mitigate and adapt to climate change, even as some countries expressed opposition to reports at the ongoing climate talks in Poland. Environment Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobiko says the country will re-evaluate its development agenda in light of the reports to give the country the best chance to survive climate change. But as Zainab Ismail reports, this may be easier said than done, considering Kenya has already signed a 200 billion shilling contract to build a coal power plant in Lamu.
The climate change talks here in Poland are now in their final week, and this week is beginning when the high-level segment of ministers and environment ministers from around the world are already here for that high-level segment. And they're joining these discussions at a time when last week did not end on a good note. In fact, the discussions last week ended with the meeting having rejected a crucial report on climate change that is supposed to force the world to limit carbon emissions within the next 12 years before the impacts of climate change become catastrophic. And African ministers are here to say that they are not happy with the way things ended last week, and they're not happy that that report was rejected.
That report, which has received worldwide acclaim and acceptance, is based on science. And it tells us what already the previous COPs have underscored, the urgency and the dire situation we are at. For us as the developing world, we find it rather disappointing that this report, special report, was diminished.
One of the key drivers of climate change is coal production. And here in Poland where we are, it's a country that is big on coal, but it is also slowly starting to move away from coal. Now Kenya is going into coal production and is actually in the process of setting up a coal-fired power plant in Lamu County.
There is also a report, the UN Environment Emission Gap report that came in which actually are consistent. So we as a country are going to look into this and mainstream those findings. Government will have to sit now at a high policy level and look at the findings that have been confirmed.
It is up to the country to choose the right path in terms of technology, but also in terms of climate protection, in terms of environmental protection. It also, each of these sources of energy has a different impact, for example, on air quality.
The role of the ministers in these talks now is to add the political voice to all the commitments that have been made here. And Kenya says it will not just be speaking as Kenya, but it will be speaking together with the African ministers to give one African voice. And their goal here is to make sure that all of the needs of the continent are met.
The position being taken now by a number of our friends, especially in the developed world, is a narrow focus on mitigation. Adaptation for us as Kenya, as Africa, and as a developed country is very critical. For us, adaptation is absolutely key.
Zainab Ismail, NTV, Katowice, Poland.
Now, Kenya is in talks with at least 31 member states of the International Civil Aviation Organization, looking to sign new as well as renew existing air service bilateral and multilateral agreements, even as greater focus draws to the need to remove barriers to air travel. Victor Kiprop reports on the challenges and opportunities at the heart of Africa's two-decade-long struggle to liberalize its air transport market.
Air travel in Africa is a long, tedious and expensive affair. This is largely due to the decision by countries in the region to put restrictions on accessing each other's markets. And at the start of a 3-day International Civil Aviation Organization conference on air services negotiation in Nairobi, the need for countries, especially in Africa, to open up their airspaces to competition featured prominently.
Africa needs this more than any person. Aviation is a catalyst for socio-economic development, and you can only enhance the contribution of air transport to the economic development of Africa through connectivity.
So far, 27 countries, including Kenya, representing 80% of passenger traffic in the continent, have already signed the Single African Air Transport Market Agreement, which was launched in January with the aim of reducing fares and increasing connectivity. However, nearly a year later, the initiative hasn't moved beyond the planning stage.
Our negotiators will be negotiating with 31 partner states. They're going to be doing some renewals. They will be doing some variations on existing air services, plus entirely new ones.
Regionally, Kenya continues to play her role in the formulation and implementation of initiatives adopted for the safe, secure, and sustainable civil aviation system throughout the African continent. These initiatives are aimed at improving air connectivity, reducing cost of air transport, and ensuring the sustainable development of air transport in Africa that will further improve service delivery.
According to the International Air Transport Association, if just 12 key African countries opened their markets, 155,000 new jobs would be created and $1.3 billion would be added to the continent's economy. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business, Nairobi.
Now, the Consolidated Bank of Kenya is searching for 3.5 billion shillings in capital injection in what the bank terms as reorganization of its balance sheet. This development heightens investor focus in the operations of small banks, coming just 3 days after NIC Bank and Commercial Bank of Africa made public commencement of talks towards a possible merger. Consolidated Bank reported a net loss of 404 million shillings in the period ending September 2018, with losses having widened by 34% from the same period in 2017. And the United Kingdom has been given permission by the European Court of Justice to cancel Brexit without consulting the other 27 members of the EU. The landmark decision comes as Britain enters a crucial 24-hour period in which members of Parliament will vote on whether they are to accept Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit plan, which other EU states already support. The ruling by the European Court of Justice follows arguments put forward by the anti-Brexit politicians. The protracted Brexit process still presents lots of uncertainties and may so far have caused some of those who hoped for independence from the EU to change their minds. All right, and that brings us to a close of business news this evening, but we have quite a lot. Stay tuned. Much for staying with us. Now, Mary Mutua, a mother of 3 in Wote Town, Makueni County, has beaten all odds and entered into a job of cracking stones to produce ballast, which she sells at construction sites within her locality. Despite it being known as men's work, Mary has been working on the rocks from February 2018 and now says she has nothing to worry about. Mamiendo brings us her story on this week's My Job segment.
They say what a man can do, a woman can do better. Perhaps this is what Mary Mutua lives by. She cracks stones for a living, one after another, as she puts all her effort and strength in her work. This is Mary's livelihood and has been for the past 9 months. But this is no new job for the young mother of 3.
Nilichagua hii kazi maana naipenda, nilianza kitambo na nilianza nikiwa msichana mdogo. Hii kazi ndio nilikuwa tunafanya, ndio tulitumia kulipiwa school fees, ndio maana naifanya.
On a good day, Mary can produce up to 3 wheelbarrows of ballast, which she sells at 150 Kenya shillings each. When customers are scarce, the price is revised downwards to 120 Kenya shillings per wheelbarrow.
Hii pesa ndio ninatumia kulisha watoto, kulipa school fees na pia kulipa nyumba. Niko na watoto 3, first born ako umri wa miaka 7, second born ako na miaka 4, third born ako na mwaka 1.5.
Even though cracking stones provides an income for her and her family, Mary admits it is a risky job, accompanied by its challenges.
Changamoto tunazopata kwa msimu wa mvua ni kwamba sasa maji yakishapita mahali tulikuwa tunatoa mawe, maji yamepita. Kama kuna mawe ulikuwa umeacha kwa mto au kwa umebeba, hiyo mawe yote inaenda na maji.
That notwithstanding, Mary continues to soldier on with her work and has committed herself to not backing down even when tough times come calling. Mamiendo, NTV.
Fantastic, and what an inspiration there. Well, that report there by Mamiendo brings us to a close on this segment. But Brian Otwal will be bringing you all the sporting action in just a while.
Kenya started their Coca-Cola Africa Cup campaign on a high after humiliating Ethiopia 11-1 at the Nakuru High School grounds. And as Joshua Makori reports from Nakuru County, it was double victory as national Coca-Cola tournament champions Moi Girls Nangili, who are the girls representatives, beat Zimbabwe 2-1.
Kenya thrashed Ethiopia 11-1 as inaugural Coca-Cola Under-16 Africa Cup of Nations tournament kicked off at Nakuru High School grounds. Kenya, represented by St. Anthony Boys, Kitale head Jacob Onyango scored 4 goals. Issa Rashidi, who netted hat-trick. Freddy Kindege, who scored a brace. And Daniel Odhiambo and Haruni Kibiwot, who both scored a goal. Tsegaye Dawiti scored Ethiopia's consolation. Meanwhile, Zambia beat Nigeria 2-1 in Pool B. Ben Kalombo and Isaac Firi scored for Zambia as Mohamed Hussein was on target for Nigeria. In the girls' match, Kenya saw off Zimbabwe 2-0. Sharon Ikaye and Vanessa Ningahe scored for national Coca-Cola champions Moi Girls Nangili. Day 2 action will see Tanzania entertain South Africa in Pool D. Malawi face Mozambique in Pool C. Zambia plays Zimbabwe in Pool B as Ethiopia battle Botswana in Pool A. St. Anthony Kitale will rest tomorrow before they take on Botswana on Wednesday. Joshua Makori, NTV, Nakuru High, Nakuru County.
And Kenyan Premier League Stadia Safety and Security Committee has banned the use of 5 stadia, among them Kamtoyoyo, Chemelil Sports Complex, Mumia Sports Complex, Ruaraka Sports Club and Thika Sub-County Stadium. This will be a big blow to clubs who use the grounds as home turf. They include Tusker, who consider Ruaraka as their home ground, while Kamtoyoyo ban will certainly affect a number of teams, with Posta Rangers, Kariobangi Sharks, KCB, Mount Kenya United and Mathare United hosting some of their league matches their last season. Chemelil Sugar will also have to seek an alternative home ground after the ban of Chemelil Sports Complex. The stadiums will be eligible for use once recommendations made for their facelift are met. And drama unfolded on the second day of the mini classic rally as Tapio Lakunen was forced to drop from the leaderboard after his Porsche 911 suffered a broken stubble axle going into the opening stage of the day 2 action. The incident left Baldev Chaga take over the lead in his Porsche 911. The former Kenya National Rally Drivers Champion is now leading the 3-day competition going into the final day on Tuesday. Chaga is now ahead of the second place Raji Barij by nearly 10 minutes. Ian Duncan came in 3rd place driving a Ford Capri. And Kenya Sevens climbed 1 place at the World Sevens Series from 15th to 14th after Cape Town Sevens leg after finishing 13th.